After 3 Champions League titles and a dozen trophies, on May 26, 2025, Don Carlo Ancelotti's era at Real Madrid came to a close, paving the way for Xabi Alonso to take the seat as their new manager. And at a time where Real Madrid is facing surprising struggles, signing the hottest player in the market, Kylian Mbappe, just the prior summer, but somehow still managing to have a massively disappointing season, getting humiliated by Arsenal in the Champions League quarterfinal, getting absolutely dismantled by Barcelona in the Copa del Rey final, and even blowing their lead in the league to finish in second place. Despite the talent in the squad, it was obvious that things weren't clicking and changes needed to be made. That's why Xabi Alonso's arrival at the Santiago Bernabeu isn't just a headline, it's a seismic shift. The kind of decision that tells you Real Madrid isn't just thinking about next season, they're thinking about the next decade, and they've chosen him to lead them there. It's poetic, really. The man who once anchored Real Madrid's midfield is now the one tasked with engineering its future. A calculated, ruthless, and potentially era-defining move. Because Real Madrid didn't just hire a former player, they hired a visionary, a genius, and a man who's done it all at every level. Because in Xabi Alonso, Madrid see more than just a trophy-winning coach. They see a man who understands the Bernabeu as a battleground. A man who studied the game under greats like Del Bosque, Mourinho, Guardiola, and Ancelotti. Not only are they getting a managerial scholar with a tactical brain sharpened by war, they're getting a man who arguably sees the entirety of the game on the pitch. A man who knows how to win and knows how to completely unlock his team's attack. At Bayer Leverkusen, he didn't just win, he rewrote their identity and made history. He took a club who was nicknamed Bayer Leverkusen, who had historically choked away major titles and had been struggling for decades, and led them to an undefeated Bundesliga season. Undefeated in the same league as Bayern Munich, in his first full season as a top-flight manager. His brand of football is surgical, demanding, modern, pressing with intent, and possessing with purpose, making his players move like chess pieces, never static and never predictable. And that's what makes his appointing even more fascinating, because Real Madrid has spent the last 2 years building a squad that's perfect for that vision. Xabi Alonso just might be the one to unlock its full potential. In the club that was continuously mocked for their lackluster performances and big moments, Xabi Alonso has the potential to wake that sleeping giant. And for every opposition club, it's going to be very scary. So now the question is no longer if Xabi Alonso was destined to manage Real Madrid. The question is, what happens now that he's there? Perhaps the most exciting reason to bring in Xabi Alonso lies in his proven track record with youth development, something Real Madrid desperately needs as they usher in a new generation, as their core veterans are only getting older or leaving the game. And that's probably one of the biggest flaws with Carlo Ancelotti. While he is an excellent man-manager, more recently his hesitation or reluctancy to play the younger guys has really cost Madrid a lot. Throughout the entire season, more and more fans were calling to play Arda Güler and Endrick more in the squad rotation, with both being underused or faced with limited opportunity. And as we did see, when both were given the chance, they were still able to show flashes of absolute brilliance despite the limited minutes. But whenever they did, it seemed like Ancelotti would once more put them on the bench. Arda Güler was highlighting his flair, vision, and control, but still he wasn't yet trusted with consistent responsibility. Even Endrick was showing that hunger and ego, scoring important and impressive goals, all while showing that aggression that they really need. Still, because of their youth, Ancelotti was reluctant to give them consistent playing time. However, as we've seen with Xabi Alonso's work at Leverkusen, that will change immediately. As we've seen, he's put his full faith in young talents like Florian Wirtz, trusting him to be the creative heartbeat of a title-winning side at just 21. Also, players like Frimpong and Adley were handed major tactical roles and thrived because of Alonso's clarity, trust, and lack of age bias. The younger guys at Madrid needs a manager who can understand how to balance long-term development with immediate integration. Exactly what Alonso did so well with the explosive, raw talents at Leverkusen. If Madrid want their future stars to grow into game changers, they need a manager who won't treat that youth as an afterthought. Another major concern that Xabi Alonso has the potential to fix incredibly is the struggles of Kylian Mbappe. Under Ancelotti, Mbappe thrived simply due to his raw talent alone. Despite all the adjustments he's had to make in the new role and style he's had to play, there is no one better that can unlock Kylian Mbappe than a mind like Xabi Alonso. As a man who's played with generational attacking players, especially at the midfield position, Xabi Alonso is the perfect manager to adjust the attack to better fit his players. I, along with many others, can see how Alonso would make Mbappe the focal point of a perfectly calibrated attacking machine. Alonso's systems at Leverkusen valued space manipulation, coordinated movement, and vertical precision. An ideal setup for a player like Mbappe to completely thrive, especially when he can make it able for Mbappe to receive early, face forward, and drive into the box with intent. Alonso's use of the inverted wingbacks and dual 10s consistently drew defenders out of shape, creating isolated one-on-ones for his most dangerous players. Now imagine that infrastructure built around Mbappe. Opposing defenses would be dragged apart by Bellingham and potentially Gülle floating around centrally. This would be best for Mbappe and Rodrigo to stretch wide, all designed to leave Mbappe with the time and space to do what he does best. Moreover, Alonso's emphasis on intelligent pressing and compact transition would definitely ensure that Mbappe, often criticized for defensive passivity, is part of a system where off-ball responsibility is clear and collective. This isn't just about fitting Mbappe into Madrid, it's about truly maximizing him, turning him back into that goal-scoring and assisting monster, while building a systematic nightmare for any defense around Europe. Under Alonso, Mbappe might not just be prolific, he would be unplayable. And while many talk about Madrid being top-heavy, there's really no manager better than Alonso, who's played with the likes of Benzema, Ronaldo, and Gareth Bale, that really knows how to maximize space and let each player on each side thrive. But it's not only the attack. Alonso could also make really valuable changes to the defense. Madrid have long flirted with variations of a back three, but never fully committed, and it could be Alonso that could make it finally stick. With defenders like Rudiger, Militao, and Alaba, all who are comfortable with the ball, a 3-4-2-1 becomes not only viable, but also incredibly dangerous. In possession, I would expect Alaba or even Tchouaméni to drop into a pseudo-center-back role, while Carvajal, who is aging but still intelligent, could still invert or hold back with, depending on the match. This setup would also protect Madrid's often fragile transitions that we've seen this season, by always ensuring numerical superiority at the back. But just as valuable as defense and attack is Alonso's mastery to double pivot. At Leverkusen, Alonso's double pivot was sacred, and I can fully expect Camavinga and Tchouaméni to assume these roles, one anchoring the defense while the other progresses the attack. For example, Camavinga's skills and abilities are without question, but for someone who's played a very similar role, Xabi Alonso would be invaluable into adding further wisdom and increasing his play in the attack, defense, and decision-making with possession. And this structure will also allow Bellingham to roam higher and advance to a floating 10 or an 8. And ideally, this would create a midfield that's both combative and creative, able to suffocate opponents and unpick them at will. And it would be really interesting to see what Bellingham could do under a Xabi Alonso system. And Alonso doesn't even really need classic strikers to score goals. He has a lot of talent who are fully capable of doing so. He just needs his players to find space. And with his tactical genius, he knows just how to create it. But probably one of the most unique things about Alonso's tactics is that he doesn't need his fullbacks to just bomb forward. Oftentimes, he'll invert them when needed, especially when he wants to overload the central midfield. Alonso just might very well ask Carvajal to tuck in and become a midfield facilitator, while guys like Vinicius cut inside to exploit half spaces, flooding zones with tactical moves rather than just crossing endlessly or getting overcrowded down the middle. However, personally, the most important tactic that Xabi Alonso would bring to Madrid is his philosophy of committing to organized pressing. Ancelotti's Madrid often dropped deep and relied on last-ditch defending, but with Alonso, he likes to press higher, not recklessly, but strategically. I fully expect traps to be set in the middle third, forcing early turnovers where Madrid can immediately counterattack. And if Xabi Alonso could hammer this into his squad, I fully expect the gaps between midfielders and defenders to completely shrink. And it's this one change that I think could solve Madrid's most persistent flaws. Because what makes Xabi Alonso's managerial mind so dangerous is its duality. Equal parts tactical rigidity and tactical freedom. He builds structure but allows his players to interpret the match. Simply, he sets the stage but lets the actors improvise. That's how his Leverkusen side was able to morph from possession dominance to counter-attacking excellence depending on the state of the match. His primary systems, often variations of the 3-4-2-1, allowed for seamless transitions between phases of play. And out of possession, Alonso implemented pressing triggers in zones rather than just chasing blindly, instructing his front line to trap the opponents on one flank, cutting off any passing lanes and forcing the opposition to play long balls. Because once the trap was sprung and his side regained possession, his counterattack was compact, swift, and hungry. And Alonso isn't a stubborn manager. He has the ability to make changes or pivot mid-game. If he wants to park the bus and protect the lead, he would switch, reverting back to a flat back four when he wants to play defensively. If he feels like his lineup or positioning was wrong, he'll swallow his pride and make those in-game tweaks. And for a squad with as much individual talent as Real Madrid has, that adaptability is precisely what would make him so dangerous. And also, Alonso's command over the emotional side of coaching might just prove as decisive as his formations. Plus, Alonso is the kind of manager and former player that anyone on the pitch can fully respect. And for a man who's won the Champions League, Euros, and a World Cup, not a single person can question his winning ability. So when he speaks, you can bet his players will listen. Literally. The man is fluent in Spanish, English, and German, and with a dressing room as globally diverse as Madrid's, that ability to make yourself understood not only in tactics and on the pitch, but also quite literally person to person, is invaluable. And besides, there's also that presence, because Alonso carries a composed, commanding aura. He doesn't need to shout or gesture wildly. He watches, calculates, and speaks with the weight of someone who's been there. Every player in that locker room grew up watching him, and that's just something no other manager in the world can replicate. He's uniquely placed to guide the younger generation. Alonso understands the psyche of the modern player. The social media noise, the distractions, the pressure, and the instability. They'll see him as a mentor and whose respect they have to earn. And he's not just some manager who's gotten his job off of reputation alone. Alonso was patient and studied the game. There's no doubt that the players in Madrid will also feel that passion. Because come on, if you see your manager giving you those kinds of passes and beautiful balls in training, it doesn't just inspire belief in the squad. It shows identity and purpose. And I can only imagine what Xabi Alonso would do in the actual training grounds of Madrid. Heck, I can quite literally see Xabi Alonso teaching his players not only how to pass better, but also share that world-class brilliance he had as a player. He's played potentially with the best midfield football history has ever seen. And if there's any manager in the world that not only did as well as he did with Leverkusen, but was also so unquestionably world-class as a player, really, it's only him. And even if he wasn't joining Real Madrid, he's bringing with him a system built not only to accommodate talent, but to elevate them. His vision and mine is only built for dominance. So Madrid isn't just getting a manager, they're getting a genius both on and off the pitch. And with him at the helm of Real Madrid, next season, they are going to look very scary.